fall of 2006, a 16-year-old girl was house sitting for her aunt in the Whispering Cliffs neighborhood of Pocatello, Idaho. The girl invited her boyfriend over to keep her company, and they spent the evening just relaxing and watching movies. But over the course of the night, strange things started happening inside the house. And what started out as a peaceful evening in slowly devolved into one of the most tragic and horrifying nights in the town's history. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Summer Sanchez, and on this channel we talk about crime, cults, and heinous history. So if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss an upload. The case that we're going to be talking about today is one of the most disturbing cases I've ever heard of, and what makes it really stand out is that we have footage of the killers planning out the crime.
Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddard. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get?
So that is what we are talking about today, but before we get into the case, let's go ahead and briefly talk about today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first ever bake from frozen subscription box offering pastries, sourdough bread, and hand-cut pastas shipped directly to your door. They partner with bakers and pasta makers from all over the country, and they work together to bring their customers the freshest, most delicious breads and pastas possible. I have a bunch of kids, and we go through a lot of bread, and the bread that I get from the grocery store is okay, but it doesn't really stay fresh for very long, especially like the specialty bakery breads. We have to eat those within like the first day or two, or they usually start to mold, and it ends up being a waste of money. But with Wild Grain, the bread arrives frozen, and you keep it frozen until you're ready to pop it into the oven. And I love how convenient it is, especially when I'm in a hurry and I'm trying to finish up making dinner on a busy weeknight. Since it's baked from frozen, I don't have to worry about remembering to take bread out to rise before baking, so it's a huge time saver. And everything that we've tried from Wild Grain has been delicious. The box that we received this month had sourdough bread, tonarelli pasta, maple Belgian waffles, snickerdoodle cookies, pumpkin cinnamon biscuits, ciabatta rolls, and croissants. But the thing that I was most excited about this month was the pumpkin cinnamon biscuits. I am that person who eats and drinks all of the pumpkin things during fall, so I was really happy that they included something like that in the October box. They included icing for the biscuits as well, and it paired perfectly with a fresh cup of coffee. Wild Grain also offers plant-based boxes, and they offer gluten-free boxes, and all of those items are made in 100% gluten-free facilities. They also donate 4 meals to the Greater Boston Food Bank for every single membership. They've already donated more than 500,000 meals. And you can get started with your own Wild Grain subscription by clicking the link in the description box or going to wildgrain.com/summer and use my code SUMMER to get $30 off your first box. Plus, you'll also get free croissants in every box for life. A big thank you to Wild Grain for sponsoring this video, and now let's get into the case. Sunday, September 24th, 2006, Allison Contreras and her daughter arrived home from a weekend trip. They lived in the Whispering Cliffs neighborhood of the town of Pocatello, Idaho, and Allison's niece, Cassie Jo Stoddard, had been house sitting for them while they were away. Cassie was supposed to stay at the house all weekend and take care of the family dogs and cats and just make sure that everything was okay while they were gone. But as soon as Allison and her daughter approached the front door, they knew that something was wrong because the front door was left open. So they walked inside and they started calling out to Cassie, but there was no response. And once they finally made it into the living room, they made a horrific discovery. Cassie's lifeless body was laid out on the living room floor, and there was blood everywhere. And Allison immediately called 911.
Emergency 911?
I need an ambulance.
Okay, what's going on?
There's a dead dog on my stairs.
An autopsy later revealed that Cassie had been stabbed at least 30 times, and she was stabbed with 2 different knives. One was a serrated blade and the other was a non-serrated blade. And Cassie had obviously put up a fight. She had a lot of defensive wounds on her body, and one of her fingers was missing. It was likely severed while she was trying to fend off her attacker. Police arrived and they started processing this absolutely gruesome crime scene. They couldn't find any sign of forced entry, so pretty much right from the start they thought that the killer could be someone that Cassie knew, someone that she would trust to let inside of the house. So police start their investigation right away, and by this point Cassie's mother Anna had arrived on scene, and of course she was in a state of complete shock. She had no clue who would want to hurt her daughter. Police learned that Cassie had been house sitting for Allison for the weekend. Anna told police that she had dropped Cassie and her boyfriend Matt Beckham off at the Whispering Cliffs house on Friday at 5:30 p.m. Anna had called and spoke to Cassie twice that night. She was just calling to check in with her just to make sure everything was going okay. In the last conversation, Cassie had told her that she and Matt were just hanging out, watching movies, everything was fine, and that she would call her tomorrow. But she had not heard from Cassie since that final phone call. Now, the news of Cassie's death spread throughout the town of Pocatello very, very fast. And by the next day, everyone at Pocatello High School knew what had happened, and everyone was devastated. Cassie was very well liked at school. She had a lot of friends. She was very smart. She was artistic. She loved music. No one could imagine anyone wanting to hurt Cassie. She had no enemies. But rumors started going around pretty quickly that her boyfriend Matt was somehow involved because he had been the last person to see her that Friday night. As far as I know, that was the only reason why anyone suspected Matt of being involved. I don't think that there were any prior red flags or anything. It was just very suspicious that he was the last person to see her alive. He had been alone in the house with her right before her mother lost contact, and there was no sign of a break-in, so it made sense that Matt would be considered a suspect. Also, Matt acted pretty strangely when he heard about Cassie's death. He seemed emotionless. He was very, very quiet about the whole thing. So police decided to sit down with Matt, and they were like, go through everything that happened that night. Start from the beginning and tell us everything. Matt said that he and Cassie were dropped off at 5:30 that evening by Cassie's mother. They spent the evening watching movies, and it was a mostly uneventful night. He stayed until about 11:15, and his mother picked him up, and that was the last time that he had seen Cassie. But he did mention a few odd things that had happened right before he left. At around 10 o'clock that night, the power suddenly went out in the house, and then it just turned back on a couple of minutes later. Matt said that he and Cassie couldn't figure out why the power would have flipped off and on like that, but they eventually just chalked it up to some momentary issue with the power plant. But then the family dogs started acting really weird. They were clawing and growling at the basement door, and even after the dogs had finally calmed down, Cassie was still pretty shaken up. You know, this was very unsettling. This was a big empty house that Cassie had to spend the night in all alone, and now all of these strange things were suddenly happening, and so she was pretty freaked out. So Matt said that when his mom called at 11 to tell him that it was time to come home, that he asked if he could spend the night with Cassie since she was scared, but his mom said no, and he ended up leaving at around 11:15 that night, and that was the last time he'd seen her. He said that he did try calling to check in on Cassie a little after midnight, but he couldn't get an answer. Matt agreed to a polygraph test, and he passed, and so for now, Matt was cleared. So with all of Matt's information, police started looking into why the power would have went off that night. None of the other houses in the neighborhood had lost power. There were no storms that night, so there was no obvious reason that the power should have went off. So they thought that maybe someone had manually turned off the power from the fuse box. So they dusted the fuse box for fingerprints, and they On March 31st, 2010, Teresa Stone arrived at her husband's insurance agency and walked into her worst nightmare. Her husband of nearly 20 years, Randy Stone, was dead right there on the office floor. This was obviously a homicide, but who would have wanted to hurt Randy Stone? He was well known and well loved by everyone in the community, but apparently there was at least one person in Randy's circle who wanted to see him dead, because it didn't take long for police to figure out that this was not a random attack. Randy knew his killer personally, and police discovered their first major clue discarded in a trash can just feet away from Randy's dead body. And this clue would lead them to the most unlikely place, the New Hope Baptist Church. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Summer Sanchez, and on this channel we talk about crime, cults, and heinous history. So if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss an upload. Today we are talking about the very messy, very tragic case of Randy Stone. Before we get into today's case, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Scentbird. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service that allows you to try out new perfumes and colognes every single month. They have a ton of different options. They offer over 600 different fragrances, and these fragrances range from well-known higher-end brands to lesser-known indie brands. And I love that I don't have to physically go to a shop and try out a billion different options. Scentbird delivers them right to my door. And they give you a generous amount of product too. There's about a 30-day supply in each of these cute little vials. And this gives you a chance to really get a feel for the fragrance, really test it out. The perfume vial cases are really nice and convenient. They're sleek and cute, and they're small enough to just toss into your bag and take them with you on the go. Scentbird lets you choose your own perfumes too, so you know exactly what you're getting. And their website has really good descriptions of all the scents. They list out like all the different notes in each scent. I find them very helpful when I'm trying to decide which perfume to pick. This month I received the 7 Virtues Amber Vanilla, Versace Crystal Noir, and Dime 7 Summers. And I have to say I had a pretty hard time choosing my favorite this month, but I think I have to give the edge to the 7 Virtues Amber Vanilla. The card says that it's an aromatherapy perfume and it magnifies your natural scent to give you like a clean second skin effect. effect. It smells amazing. It has notes of amber, pink carnation, skin musks, and of course vanilla. And I am definitely a vanilla kind of girl when it comes to perfumes and even candles. I have a ton of vanilla candles in my house. If you do decide to try out Scentbird, I am telling you, add this one to your list. It smells absolutely amazing. And you can go to scentbird.com and use my code SUMMER55 off to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Thanks again to Scentbird for keeping me smelling good all year long and for sponsoring today's video. And now let's jump into the case. On March 31st, 2010, 39-year-old Teresa Stone spent the afternoon going to appointments and running errands before heading to her husband's insurance business in Independence, Missouri. Teresa helped her husband, 43-year-old Randy Stone, run the insurance agency, and together over the years, the two of them had grown a pretty successful business. Teresa had worked in the office most of that morning, but she had spent the afternoon doing stuff around town, shopping, running errands, stuff like that. After she was done with her errands, Teresa headed back up to the office to finish out the workday. But as soon as she pulled into the parking lot, she knew something wasn't right. The office looked like it was closed down for the day. The blinds were all shut the way they would be during non-business hours, and Randy's car was still in the parking lot in the same spot that he always parked in. So Teresa knew he was still there, but everything looked dark. So Teresa parks her car right next to Randy's car. She gets out and she walks up to the front office door, but when she tried to open the door, it was locked. Again, this was odd. That door was never locked during business hours. So Teresa got out her keys and she unlocked the door, and as soon as she stepped inside, she noticed how dark it was in the office. All of the lights were off and it was eerily quiet. Teresa slowly walked into Randy's office to look for him, but he wasn't in there. Nothing looked disturbed though. Randy's computer was still on as if he had just recently been working at his desk. So Teresa then peeks into a storage room to see if Randy's in there. But again, there was no Randy and there was nothing out of place. So Teresa then walked into her office. As soon as Teresa opened her office door, she saw her husband lying on the floor completely motionless in a pool of blood. Randy had blood pouring out of his ears, his skin was discolored, and his lips were blue. And Teresa panics. She steps over Randy, she grabs her office phone, and she starts calling for help. She called the first number she could think of, and that was her parents' phone number. And she tells them everything. She says, I was running errands. When I got back to the office, I found Randy. He's been shot and he's dead on the floor. Teresa's parents are like, okay, you need to call for help. You need to hang up with us and you need to call 911. And that's exactly what Teresa does. She hangs up the phone and she calls 911. She tells the operator that she doesn't know what happened to Randy, but he's unresponsive, lying on the floor of her office. She says his skin is discolored, there's blood coming out of his ears, and she says, I don't know what's going on. Maybe he fell or something. I don't know, but we need help immediately. As the police pull up to the agency, Teresa runs out of the building and she basically falls into one of the officer's arms and she's just sobbing and she's trying to tell them what she's just seen. So police cautiously walk inside because at this point they don't know if whoever did this is still in the building. If Randy really is dead, if someone had killed him, is the killer still in the building? So they walk in cautiously and they check all the rooms of the building and they confirm that there is no one else there. And they also confirm that Randy is in fact dead and he looks like he's been shot. He had been shot once in the head at close range with a 40 caliber handgun. And they knew that it was a 40 caliber right off the bat because they actually found a shell casing lying on the ground right by Randy's dead body. So police, they start putting up caution tape and they immediately start taking crime scene photos. They start looking for evidence, anything that can shed some light on the situation. They end up finding some money sitting out on the desk. About $150 in cash is just sitting right there on the desk next to Randy's body. So police ruled out a robbery pretty much from the very beginning. If someone had murdered Randy during like a robbery gone wrong, then that money surely would have been picked up. It was literally right there for the taking. And as far as they could tell, nothing had been taken from the agency. And there were no signs of like a forced entry or a struggle, so this just didn't seem like a random murder. The police had decided pretty much from the start that this had to be someone that Randy knew personally. Now, as police are gathering clues and taking photos and stuff, several people had started to arrive on the scene. After Teresa had made that phone call to her parents, news of Randy's death really started to travel fast. Relatives and friends of the Stones started showing up outside of the agency. Even the pastor of the Stones church, David Love, and his wife Kim showed up on the scene to offer their support. Kim and David comforted Teresa, and Kim even walked with Teresa to a nearby bathroom so she could go in and, splash some water on her face and try to calm down a bit. Teresa is eventually taken down to the station so she could give a statement about everything, that had happened that day and answer some questions that might help to shed some light on the case and point investigators in the right direction.
Good idea.
Say hello. hello. He won't stop crying at me, so he's gonna sit on my lap while I record. So Teresa starts by giving police a play-by-play of her movements that day.
Well, I was supposed to be up there at 1:45 to fill out paperwork, and my appointment was actually at 2.
Okay.
But the bank was kind of slow, so I didn't actually get there till about 2 till. And I left there about 2:15. So I had about an hour to spare. So I went shopping to Dress Barn.
That's right.
Let me
So I left Dress
bring you up
Barn
one sec.
about 2:41.
All right,
She
what were
tells
you
them
saying?
that she had been at work that
I
morning,
said
but that she had left early that afternoon, and she
a
had
laptop.
receipts. She said that she had went to
Would you
several different
recommend an
stores and
AMD
appointments. And
chip
as police
or
are
an
listening to
Intel
Teresa tell them all of this, they're
Probably
noticing that
AMD right
there
now.
are no tears in her eyes.
Because
She's talking in this
cheaper.
like cry voice, but they don't see any actual
It
tears
actually-
coming out.
It actually is.
Good blood coming out of his
I
ear.
have a few options that I'm gonna make a friend of mine in the US buy for me.
I was really... and this kid was really...
I'll tell you the options. They're all aces.
But I noticed he
One,
was...
which when it goes
In
on
fact, earlier
sale is
in the
like for
car on the way over from the station, Teresa
$750.
wasn't crying then either. She even told the officer who was driving her over to the
It's an
station that she was sorry that she wasn't
laptop
more
with
upset,
like
but she
16
was
gigs
all
of RAM
cried
and
out.
the
Again, she had
processor is
just
Intel
discovered
Core
her
Ultra
husband's dead
7.
body, but there was no emotion.
I think it
Of
has
course,
like
people grieve in all
has
different
like,
ways, but
16
not
cores
only had her
or
husband
14
of
cores,
20
I don't
years
remember.
just died, but he had been murdered, and she
It
had been the one to find
has-
him. But she's all cried out, she
has
says,
16
and now she's just
cores
very
and
calmly
22
giving the
threads.
statement. I just don't think that
Right?
that's a typical response, and the police didn't think so either. And so the
hear
investigators
me?
were already
Yeah.
a little suspicious of Teresa. They
And
asked
then
her during
there's
this interview about
the
the gun that
same
she was
exact
They already
laptop,
determined that the murder weapon was a
but
40 caliber
instead
handgun.
of
Said
the
they had found
Intel
out
Core
that
Ultra
Randy
chip,
actually owned
it's
a 40
the
caliber handgun. But
Ryzen
Teresa
7
told them that Randy no longer had that gun. He had actually sold
8000
it a while back.
series
She said she
with
didn't
a
know who he
Zen
sold it to.
4,
She didn't know anything about the sale. She just
which
knew that
I
he
think is
sold it.
better
And
for,
then police turned up the heat when they dropped a bombshell.
it's better
During their initial
for,
search of the crime scene,
like,
they
battery
discovered
and stuff.
something very interesting in the trash can. Just
What I like
the way
about
the
it
ladies
is
were.
like it's
Ripped up into
cheaper.
several
It's for
pieces was a love
800.
letter, and it
That's
was written by
without
someone
sale.
that the
So
police
if
had
there's a
already
sale, it's
pretty
gonna
much
be
determined
cheaper.
was not Randy Stone. The
I can
handwriting
buy it
didn't
right now
look
if I want
anything
to.
like the
The
handwriting
problem
that
is
was written
it's
by people working in Randy's
it's a
office.
laptop
And
from
this letter had
Walmart.
obviously been written for Teresa.
So
I'm
I'm
not going to
kinda
read out the
skeptical
entire
about
letter, but I
Walmart.
will tell you what some of it said. Happy
You know?
birthday, love. You are so
Why
very
so?
precious to my heart. You possess the
I
most
don't know, like
tender
I
spot in my
trust
heart.
Best
I care
Buy
for you
more.
than
I
anyone else
trust
on earth,
Amazon
and
a
I
bit
desire
more.
to be with you every moment of every day. Your birthday
I don't know about
is my
Walmart,
favorite day.
you know?
I remember 9 years ago.
That's the only
telling you
problem
that
with
I
it.
had something
Besides
to do in
that,
my house.
everything
It
else
was
is good.
me.
It's
I
like
wanted to
I've
do
checked
you.
some
That kiss you took and then you gave me
reviews
one
for
back.
it.
I felt like
Obviously,
it was my
like,
birthday. Now your birthday has
The
become a
problem with
sort of
reviews
anniversary
for me is
I
that
love this
people
day so much,
like
and it is
all the
all about
reviews
you,
are
the
like
most amazing woman
you
in
need
all
to
the world.
future proof
I love you so
this
much.
shit
So the police
and
let Teresa finish
this
reading her
thing
statement,
is
and
not
they
gonna
just
be able
casually
to do
mentioned this letter.
anything.
They
I'm
didn't
like,
call
brother,
it a
I
love
have a
letter. They said
Core
that you
i5
found a
9th
letter ripped
gen.
up in the
I
trash
can
can
do
in your
most
office,
stuff
and it was
with
like
it.
a happy birthday letter
So
or
like,
something. And you can just
I'm
tell
sure
by the
another
look on Teresa's
like
face that
higher
she was
end
like,
chip would
oh shit.
do the job,
And letter
you
just
know.
made written about happy birthday and all
Yeah.
that. It's about this big. It was all tore up.
So like at the end of the day, they all there's another one.
She started acting confused, like she didn't know what they
that
were
has an
talking
Intel
about. She was like
Core-
furrowing
Intel
her
Core
brow, like she
Ultra
was trying
9.
really hard to figure out what this letter was all about. So the
and
police
it's
were like, okay, you know
$900,
what?
so
We
it's like
actually have the
$100
letter
more
here.
expensive,
We're
but
gonna
I've
go
got the
get
money
it
for
for
it.
you, so it can
So,
kind of jog your memory. And
like,
so
if I
the
want to, I can
investigators
buy
get
it.
up, they walk out of the interview room, and they leave
apparently
Teresa
just
alone.
the
And
few
as soon as they
differences
were
are
gone,
like
Teresa can be heard on camera
how much
saying,
fan
"Great,
noise
I
and
forgot
how
about
much
that."
heat and all that shit.
So Teresa had to think fast
I don't know,
to
I like-
explain
I
away
like
this letter.
the-
And so when investigators came back in, Teresa says, "Oh yeah, you
I
know what? I
like
actually do remember that letter. That
the
was actually
one
from a
with the
secret admirer,
AMD
and it was
shit.
given to me years ago. I don't even know who the person was. I never found out who they were. I never
So I
met
think
them.
it
But
lives a
whoever
bit-
it was put the
like
letter
it
on my
lives a
car,
bit
and
more,
I found it one day,
usually.
and I don't know. I just stuck it into my purse and forgot all about it."
Only one
on my
USB
cardboard.
Type A though.
That's been several years
That's
ago.
fine.
And I just
Didn't
found it the
more
other
than
day. I
that.
was looking for my dental card.
I'll probably
and
go
I
with that one.
found it in there,
Probably.
and
What was that?
I said my only problem
no,
with
no,
it
it
is
was in
just
my, it was in my
the
purse. I have a little thingy that I keep all my credit cards in,
Yeah.
and it was
the
in there.
Walmart
I
situation.
don't know who he is.
Now, the police knew that this story couldn't be true because the wording in that letter was very specific. Whoever wrote that letter to Teresa knew her personally and probably intimately. In that letter, the person said that whoever this was and Teresa had kissed 9 years ago in their office. It said things like, "I love you so much, you're the most amazing woman in the world, you possess the most tender spot in my heart." Based on the wording of that letter, it definitely seems like Teresa knows who wrote it. So they're pretty sure that she's flat out lying about this letter. They believe that Teresa knows who wrote that letter, that she is in a relationship with this person, and the letter also implied that whoever wrote this letter has been in a relationship with Teresa for at least 9 years. Also, when Teresa called her parents, she told them that Randy had been shot. He was shot and he was dead on the office floor. But when she talked to the 911 operator, she told them that she didn't know what happened to Randy. Maybe he fell or something. Police also found out that after Teresa hung up with her parents, it took her 7 minutes to call 911. So what was she doing in those 7 minutes? By the end of that interview, the police strongly believed that Teresa was involved in Randy's murder in some way. But they needed more proof, so they let Teresa go free. And Teresa seemingly had no clue that the police were on her. She seemed like she was pretty happy with her performance, and her actions in the days following the murder were suspicious. First of all, just one day after her husband had been murdered, Teresa went to a tanning salon and had herself a nice, relaxing tan. And before she left the tanning salon, she asked them to transfer her dead husband's remaining prepaid tanning credits to her account since he wouldn't be needing them anymore. Teresa also immediately started looking into Randy's life insurance policies. You know how when a loved one passes away, friends and family will show up to your house, they'll come and visit, they'll bring food and like groceries and flowers and stuff. Well, in the days after Randy's murder, lots of people were stopping by Teresa's house. And some of those people started to notice that Teresa didn't seem very upset. She would only sort of cry when a new person would come to the house. She would like cry for a second and then she would just completely stop and be talking totally normal. One of the people who stopped by Teresa's house the day after the murder was a man named Robert Davis. Robert was a longtime friend of Teresa and Randy's, and he was also an insurance agent just like Randy had been. And when he stopped by to, pay his condolences, Teresa gave him a hug and she seemed really upset at first, and Robert's trying to console her. And then Teresa tells Robert that she really needs to speak with him in private. So they go into another room. As soon as they got into this room, Teresa's demeanor completely changed. She had completely stopped crying. She was no longer acting upset. She just wanted to know about Randy's life insurance payout. Robert Davis later said that there was paperwork spread out all over the desk, like Teresa had went through all of Randy's papers and she was really trying to figure out just how much money she was going to be getting. And Robert Davis felt like this was really strange. This was the day after Randy was murdered and they didn't even have the death certificate yet. He was really put off by Teresa's behavior and alarm bells started going off big time. Now, the police immediately started checking into Teresa's alibi. She had given them a list of places that she had supposedly been the day of the murder. So they went down the list and they went to each and every place that Teresa had said that she had been, and everything actually checked out. She was telling the truth about where she had been that day. Randy's funeral was held on April 6th and the church was completely packed. So many people showed up to pay their respects and to say goodbye to a really loved member of the community. And the police were also there that day. They wanted to sort of people watch and see if anyone stood out, acted strangely. Maybe they would get a lead. And police did have a pretty interesting conversation with Robert Davis that day. He told them all about that weird interaction that he had had with Teresa that day at her house the day after Randy's murder. He told them that Teresa seemed like she wasn't actually upset. He said that she just really wanted to know about Randy's life insurance payout. And police found that information very interesting. The Stones pastor, David Love, gave the eulogy that day. He had known Randy for years and they had gotten really close. And so the eulogy seemed very heartfelt and very personal.
We weep not just because of the separation from our loved one, but because of all the questions that death brings. Questions like why? Why him? Why now?
But those words would not age well at all because a huge secret was about to be revealed. So the police started questioning the people closest to Randy, and a lot of people that they questioned were members of the New Hope Baptist Church where Randy and Teresa had been parishioners for years, like over 20 years.
Since it's 1
and a lot of the New Hope Baptist Church members were telling police the same thing. They told police that for years rumors have been swirling around the church that Teresa Stone and Pastor David Love were having an affair. And police started to think that Pastor Love was
dang.
probably
You know the
the
time
author
where it
of that
resets?
love
Just
letter.
give
As
it.
it
Yeah,
turns
it's not
out,
working for me,
David
so
Love
yeah,
and
I'm
Teresa
assuming
Strong had
it's
been involved in a very
it's that.
serious
So
sexual
just give it
affair for
a,
nearly
I
10
don't know,
years.
20,
And once
30
investigators
minutes,
learned about that, the pieces of the puzzle all started to fall into
and you'll
place. So
probably find
Teresa
it.
was born in
Like
1971 in
that's like
Kansas City,
working.
Missouri, and she
I
actually
just
grew
cut my
up
stream
right down the
short
street
then.
from
One
Randy.
second,
Randy was
stream.
4 years older than
All right.
Teresa, but he and his siblings would hang out and play with Teresa, and they all